The impossible problem. The emergency klaxons echoed through Nexus 7's crystalline corridors for the third time in as many days. Captain Sarah Martinez quickened her pace, her boots clicking against the polished floor as she made her way to the Grand Assembly Chamber. The usually bustling trade station felt eerily quiet, with most civilian traffic suspended indefinitely. She paused at the massive entrance doors, each one carved from a single piece of Altarian crystal and standing 30 feet tall. Beyond them lay the most important diplomatic gathering in galactic history, and somehow she was Earth's only representative present. The irony wasn't lost on her that humanity's newest member of the Galactic Trade Consortium would be sitting at the same table as civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel when her ancestors were still discovering fire. The doors parted with a soft hum, revealing the vast chamber within. Representatives from 15 different species occupied their designated sections, each area customized for their specific environmental needs. The Valdorians basked under heat lamps that mimicked their home star, while the aquatic Nereids participated from their pressurized water tanks. The ethereal luminari flickered like controlled aurora, their energy forms contained within specialized field generators. Ambassador Krixtal of the Valdorian Empire noticed her arrival first. His reptilian head turned with predatory precision, yellow eyes tracking her movement as she took her seat in the modest human section. Unlike the elaborate setups around her, Sarah's area consisted of a simple chair and desk, with nothing more than a basic tablet and a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. High Counselor Themon's voice resonated through the chamber, the translation matrix converting their energy-based communication into audible words. The situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. The quantum plague has consumed the Kepler 442 system entirely. 3 billion lives gone in less than 6 hours. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of distressed sounds from various species, chittering from the insectoid Chitauri, subsonic groans from the massive Goliaths, and harmonic wails from the crystalline resonance. Sarah remained silent, making notes on her tablet as holographic displays showed the latest data from the affected regions. Commander Zephon, his forearms gesticulating frantically, buzzed with urgency. Our quantum shields held for exactly 17 minutes before the plague adapted. 17 minutes. Our best scientists predicted they would last at least a week. The temporal barriers fared no better, added Dr. Veltar, the Nereid's chief scientist, her aquatic form undulating with anxiety. Whatever this phenomenon is, it learns faster than we can deploy countermeasures. It's as if it anticipates our responses before we even implement them. Sarah looked up from her tablet, watching the heated discussions unfold around her. The plague had first appeared 6 months ago in a remote system on the galactic rim. At first, it seemed like a localized anomaly. Ships entering the affected area simply vanished, and all attempts at long-range scanning revealed nothing but empty space where planets and stars should have been. The phenomenon spread slowly at first, consuming perhaps one system per month. The galactic community initially dismissed it as some kind of natural disaster, possibly related to dark matter fluctuations or experimental weapons testing gone wrong. But as more systems fell, patterns emerged. The plague didn't just destroy. It fundamentally altered the laws of physics in affected areas. We must consider more drastic measures, declared General Mordak of the Titan Confederation, his massive form casting shadows across several smaller delegates. Planet-killer weapons deployed in a perimeter around the infected zones. Create a firebreak of dead systems to stop the spread. The suggestion sparked immediate outrage from several humanitarian-focused species, but Sarah noticed that even they seemed to be considering it. The plague had already consumed 47 star systems with billions of lives lost. How many more would die if they did nothing? The Ethereal Council has prepared dimensional folding technology, announced High Counselor Themon. We can attempt to isolate the infected regions by folding space-time around them, essentially cutting them off from our reality, and risk tearing holes in the fabric of space itself? Dr. Veltar's translator conveyed her alarm clearly. The mathematical models show a 30% chance of creating cascading dimensional rifts. We could destroy half the galaxy trying to save it. Sarah continued taking notes, occasionally glancing at the real-time updates flowing across her tablet. The plague had adapted to quantum shielding in 17 minutes. Temporal barriers lasted 43 minutes. Even the most advanced AI defense systems of the synthetic Nexus Collective had been consumed within hours of deployment. Ambassador Krickstahl's forked tongue flicked out as he spoke. Perhaps we should examine the pattern more carefully. The plague seems to target our most sophisticated defenses first. Our quantum computers, our AI networks, our advanced weapon systems. It consumes complexity, which is why our evacuation efforts have been more successful using older, simpler technologies, agreed Commander Zephan. Basic chemical rockets and mechanical systems seem to last longer in proximity to infected zones. But not long enough to mount any meaningful resistance, General Mordak rumbled, and certainly not long enough to reverse the damage or find a cure. The debate continued for hours, growing more desperate with each failed proposal. Sacrificial star systems to buy time. Experimental weapons that might work once before being adapted to. Mass evacuation of entire galactic arms. Each suggestion seemed more impossible than the last. Throughout it all, Sarah remained quiet, methodically, documenting the discussion and reviewing data streams from her contacts back on Earth. Her tablet, ancient by galactic standards, displayed information that seemed almost primitive compared to the holographic displays and neural interfaces used by other delegates. Finally, as the 8th hour of debate began, High Counselor Thieman's attention turned to the human section. Captain Martinez, your species has been notably silent during these proceedings. Surely Earth has some input on this crisis. The chamber fell quiet, various alien gazes focusing on the lone human representative. Sarah could feel the mixture of curiosity and condescension in their attention. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Trade Consortium for less than 50 years, their technology still considered primitive by most standards. She looked up from her tablet, meeting the expectant stares with calm composure. We've been analyzing the situation. And? Ambassador Krickstahl prompted, his tone suggesting he expected little of value. We'll handle it. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Several translation matrices seemed to malfunction momentarily, as if the simple declaration somehow broke their programming. Commander Zephan's antennae twitched with what Sarah had learned to recognize as confusion. I'm sorry. Could you clarify? Handle it how? We'll stop the plague, Sarah replied matter-of-factly, closing her tablet and standing. I need to request that all consortium vessels maintain a minimum distance of 5 light-years from any human ships for the next 7 days. The chamber erupted in bewildered chatter. General Mordak's booming voice cut through the noise. Captain Martinez, with all due respect, your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. This plague has defeated the combined efforts of civilizations that have existed for millions of years. Sarah shouldered her simple bag, which contained nothing more sophisticated than backup data storage and some basic supplies. I understand your skepticism. Nevertheless, Earth will address this threat independently. Please ensure your people stay clear of our operations. You can't be serious. Dr. Veltar's translated voice carried undertones of genuine concern. Even if your species had some unknown technology, the risk of failure is too great. When the plague adapts to whatever you're planning, it will become even stronger. That's assuming it can adapt to our approach, Sarah replied, walking toward the exit. We'll know within a week. High Counselor Thieman's energy form pulsed with agitation. Captain, you must understand the scope of this crisis. Every hour of delay costs lives. If humanity has some solution, surely it would be better to coordinate with the broader galactic community. Sarah paused at the massive doors, turning back to face the assembly. Coordinator Thieman, with respect, the galactic community has spent 6 months throwing increasingly complex solutions at this problem. Each one fails faster than the last. Maybe it's time to try something different. Different how? Ambassador Krickstahl demanded. Simple, Sarah said, and walked out of the chamber. Within hours, the galactic monitoring networks detected unusual activity in human space. 17 vessels departed from Earth's orbital shipyards, their designs unlike anything in the standard human fleet registry. They weren't the sleek, efficient ships humanity typically produced, but seemed almost deliberately primitive. Basic hull plating, chemical thrusters, and energy signatures that barely registered on sophisticated sensors. The alien observers were baffled. These ships looked like something humanity might have built centuries ago, when they first achieved interplanetary travel. Why would they deploy such obviously obsolete technology against a threat that had consumed the most advanced weapons systems in the galaxy? The human fleet set course directly for the nearest infected system, a trajectory that every military analyst declared suicidal. As they approached the boundary of the plague zone, galactic observers prepared to witness what they assumed would be humanity's noble but futile sacrifice. Instead, they were about to discover that sometimes the most advanced civilizations were the least prepared to solve the simplest problems. The human solution Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the cargo vessel Determination, watching the infected Kepler 442 system grow larger on the main view screen. Behind her, a crew of 23 humans worked at stations that would have looked primitive to any alien observer. Mechanical switches instead of neural interfaces, paper charts alongside digital displays. Even their communications relied on basic radio frequencies rather than quantum entanglement networks. Distance to plague boundary, 2 million kilometers. And closing, reported Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. His equipment was a hybrid of old mechanical instruments and basic electronics, specifically chosen for this mission. All stations report ready, Admiral, called Chief Petty Officer Kim from the engineering section. Payload deployment systems are green across the fleet. Chen nodded, activating the fleet-wide communications channel. All vessels, this is Determination. We are approaching the point of no return. Remember, once we cross that boundary, we're committed. Our families, our species, and 47 dead star systems are counting on us getting this right. The response came back from 16 other ship captains, their voices carrying the weight of humanity's greatest gamble. These weren't the polished officers of Earth's diplomatic corps, but miners, engineers, and technicians volunteered from the asteroid belts and outer colonies. People who understood machinery that sometimes broke down, who could fix problems with improvised tools and creative thinking. Perseverance standing by, came the voice of Captain Rodriguez, a former asteroid miner whose ship was loaded with equipment that looked like it belonged in a museum. Resilience ready for deployment, added Captain Johnson, whose crew consisted entirely of mechanical engineers who had never seen the inside of a starship until 3 weeks ago. Chen took a deep breath. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment. While the galactic community had thrown increasingly sophisticated technology at the plague, Earth scientists had taken a completely different approach. They studied the pattern of failures, analyzed what the plague consumed first, and reached a conclusion that seemed almost too simple to be true. The plague fed on complexity itself. Crossing the boundary in 10 seconds, Torres announced. All systems showing normal readings so far. Maintain course, Chen ordered. Remember, the moment anyone detects anomalous readings, we switch to manual backup systems immediately. The human fleet crossed into the infected zone, and for the first time in 6 months, ships entered plague-contaminated space without immediately vanishing. The alien observers, watching from their safe distance of 5 light-years, registered readings they couldn't quite believe. Admiral, we're getting some unusual feedback from the quantum sensors, reported Ensign Park from the science station, switching to electromagnetic scanning now. This was the key insight that had eluded every other species in the galaxy. The plague didn't just consume matter and energy, it consumed information complexity. Quantum computers failed because they processed vast amounts of information simultaneously. AI systems fell because they contained intricate networks of interconnected data. Even basic weapon systems succumbed when they relied on sophisticated targeting computers. But humanity had retained something that other species had lost in their technological evolution, the ability to function without perfect information. Deployment. Zone reached, Torres announced. All ships report ready for payload release. Begin deployment sequence, Chen ordered. Across the 17 human vessels, cargo bays opened to reveal their contents. Not weapons or shields or advanced technology, but simple mechanical devices that would have been familiar to engineers from centuries past. Spinning gyroscopes, mechanical calculators, and most importantly, networks of basic radio transmitters connected to manually operated stations. The plague had adapted to quantum communications, learning to intercept and corrupt data transmitted through subspace channels. But it struggled with simple electromagnetic radiation, especially when the signals were generated by purely mechanical means and operated by human intuition rather than computer algorithms. Network establishment proceeding normally, reported Chief Kim. We're getting clean signals from all relay stations. The human solution was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to fight the plague directly, they were creating a manual network to map its behavior and identify its source. Each ship deployed dozens of simple monitoring stations, mechanical devices that could detect changes in local spacetime without relying on complex sensors that the plague could corrupt. Admiral, we're getting readings from the inner system. Ensign Park called out, his voice tight with excitement. The plague isn't uniformly distributed. There are patterns almost like neural pathways. This was the breakthrough humanity had been working toward. While other species had tried to create barriers or weapons to fight the plague, humans had focused on understanding it. The infected zones weren't random. They formed a vast network spreading across multiple star systems, almost like a single massive organism. Transmit the pattern analysis to all ships, Chen ordered. Begin Phase 2 deployment. The second phase was even more audacious than the first. Based on their analysis, human scientists had theorized that the plague was not actually malevolent, but confused. It was consuming complex systems because it was trying to integrate them into its own network. But the process was flawed. Like a computer virus that crashes systems by trying to infect them, the plague destroyed what it was attempting to incorporate. Deploying harmonic resonators, Captain Rodriguez reported from Perseverance. His ship released a series of devices that looked like oversized tuning forks, each one calibrated to generate specific frequencies. The resonators were humanity's attempt at communication, not through sophisticated quantum channels that the plague would consume, but through simple, mechanical vibrations that it might be able to understand without destroying. Each device generated patterns based on mathematical constants that should be universal. Pi, the golden ratio, prime number sequences. We're getting a response, Park announced, his voice filled with wonder. The plague activity is changing. It's trying to match our frequencies. For the first time in 6 months, something was communicating with the plague instead of being consumed by it. The response was clumsy, like a child learning to speak, but unmistakably intentional. All ships, implement Phase 3, Chen ordered. Begin teaching protocols. This was the most human part of the entire operation. While other species had tried to defeat or contain the plague, humanity was attempting to educate it. The teaching protocols were simple: basic mathematical concepts, physical laws, and most importantly, the idea that complex systems could coexist without being absorbed. The process took 3 days. 17 human ships operating with technology that was primitive by galactic standards slowly taught the plague how to interact with complex systems without destroying them. They used mechanical devices, human intuition, and patience rather than raw computational power. On the 3rd day, something unprecedented happened. The dead zone around Kepler 442 began to clear, not through force or shields, but as the plague learned to withdraw its influence voluntarily. Planets began to reappear on sensors. The laws of physics reasserted themselves. Admiral, Torres called, out, his voice barely containing his excitement. We're getting communication attempts from the other infected systems. The plague is spreading the lesson across its entire network. Within a week, all 47 infected systems began to clear. The plague, now understanding how to coexist rather than consume, started repairing the damage it had caused. Worlds thought permanently lost flickered back into existence. Entire civilizations, somehow preserved in some form of quantum stasis, began to re-establish contact. The galactic observers, watching from their safe distance, struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. Humanity had accomplished in 7 days what the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had failed to achieve in 6 months. How? Ambassador Krikstal's message reached the human fleet through basic radio transmission. How did you succeed where we failed? Admiral Chen's response was transmitted across all frequencies, ensuring every species in the galaxy could hear it. We didn't try to defeat it. We tried to understand it. Sometimes the most advanced solution is to remember that not every problem needs to be solved with the most advanced technology. The plague, now transformed into something resembling a galactic consciousness, began, sharing knowledge rather than consuming it. Entire new fields of science opened up as humanity's simple approach to communication became the foundation for unprecedented cooperation between organic intelligence and whatever the plague had become. In the end, the youngest species in the galaxy had taught the oldest civilizations a lesson they had forgotten in their technological sophistication. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to approach it with the assumption that it might not be a problem at all, but an opportunity for understanding that nobody had tried to pursue. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. And humanity, for their part, quietly went back to solving problems with creativity, determination, and the radical assumption that even the most complex challenges might have surprisingly simple solutions.